using like AI, too much AI can ruin things in terms of like reliability of the source. Kids, students, they don't know how to tell if a source is reliable or not.
The idea of the infinite game is that in life we have two types of games that we play. There's finite games, then there's the infinite game. Business is an infinite game. Life's an infinite game. No one wins business. You don't get to the end of your career and say, I won. It doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
It's more about the impact you have on people.
We're kids, right? We want to be an astronaut. Tomorrow I wake up, I want to be a pilot. If your 12-year-old son wants to be an astronaut, make sure they want to be an astronaut. But I feel like not starting at all is not doing it. So I think action can happen today and not tomorrow.
You're listening to Bangkok Post's Mind the Gap podcast. Let's connect, converse, and create possibilities.
Hello, my name is Aaron Rigby. I'm the Regional Director for Taboola, looking after India and Southeast Asia.
Hello, my name is Phonlawat Sirajindapirom, or Beam. I am the founder and chief executive of a student-driven AI platform, RevisionSuccess. Today, we'll be talking about AI in different industries, and I look forward to that.
So let me start by talking a little bit about Taboola to give you some context of what we do. So Taboola is the world's largest performance platform, delivering massive performance outcomes at scale outside of social and search media. So what that means is we work with our publisher partners, about 9,000 publishers across the world. They use our data to better understand how users are consuming content and to do more and better news and targeting more users. And on the other side, with our advertising partners, helping advertisers target those users based on that intent signals that we're able to get. So it's a full focus ad tech platform that relies on, participation from publishers, from consumers, from readers, and of course, advertisers to fund it. So tell me about your business. What are you doing?
Yeah, so we're an ed tech startup, and we work with two markets. We work with the consumer, that's the students, and also the providers, which are the teachers. And we work with them by integrating these two markets together. For example, teachers, they want to get a better understanding of their class. They want to know which students struggle with which topics are very well received. And students, they want to have fun while also learning. And we meet in the middle. We integrate these two features together, and we use AI to be able to help teachers assist them on how to better adapt their future classes based on the class performance. We have an AI tutor chatbot, which can make quizzes and flashcards. So we help students with that as well in terms of generative AI.
Interesting. So tell me, how did this business start? Like, where did you begin? What was the germination of the idea? How old were you? And I'd like to know as well a little bit about the challenges of starting a business, running a business, someone who's so young. How did you navigate all the challenges with family and school and friends and all the challenges that come with being a teenager and able to develop such an incredible platform?
There are challenges, but we turned them into advantages. So we started with being the right people. And I started up that by going to a debate competition. I like public speaking, I do debate. And I met like-minded individuals. And we were friends, and then we decided to make this platform. We started off with, as a joke, we wanted to democratize education using AI. Back then, AI was not big.
Sorry, how long ago was back then? Because back then to me is very different to you.
Yeah, back then, 2022, 2023.
Okay, so last week for me. Yeah,
okay. Sure, last week. So we came up with this platform, and we slowly developed our platform, our features based on the trends of AI and technology. So back then, we just wanted to integrate quizzes and flashcards. For me, as a student, before our platform, there was like many platforms that make education hard, make studying very difficult. For quizzes, you have to go to this. For flashcards, you have to go to this. AI tutor, you have to go to this. There's many different platforms. You have to have like 20 tabs open. It's not effective. It's not intuitive when you study. So we wanted to combine these features in one simple platform that not only combines them, but also integrates them. So they work with other components. So quizzes can work with flashcards. Flashcards can work with the AI chatbot, etc. So that's our goal with this platform. And I think it's the future of education.
Well said. I agree with you. I'm interested to know the team dynamic. So you said you met your partners at a debate competition, right? Were they all from different schools?
We came from different schools, which gives us the advantage of selecting the cream of the crop from each different school.
Yeah, you're in separate locations, right? So you're all over just Thailand or across the SEA?
Mostly Thailand, but at different points of our startup, we worked with people from different countries as well.
So that's a really unique position, right? So if we think about that time, it was kind of just post-COVID, where everyone was working remotely.
That's right.
I was trying to manage my team of 100 people from my bedroom with my kids running around and being insane. But the creation of your business started like that, all separate, all different locations. So you've got that germination coming out of that kind of working remotely space, which has built your culture, I'm assuming. On top of that, AI, right? So AI is booming incredibly. It's everyone jumps or sneezes when NVIDIA's stocks go up or go down, right? So I think the creation of your company has come at an amazing time because everyone's used to working remotely. It's on the back of AI and you're bringing it together. And I think from an education platform perspective, that's a really interesting and difficult space to be in. That's right. I was recently at an event in Delhi in India where I heard one of the heads of Harvard speaking about AI application in their education platform. And they're really struggling with it, right? So one of the challenges is teachers don't necessarily want kids on AI because it's going to come up with all the answers, right? So it's completely changing the dynamic of education. Completely. And I think I speak to my 12-year-old boy, Bo, and ask him, are you using Cloud to research questions and things? And he's like, no, we're not allowed to. And to me, that sounds insane, right? So what's your perspective on how education needs to evolve, and not just from your lens, but global education and how that's going to be impacted by AI? So
we live in an age where information can be retrieved and discovered easily. Before, you have to read newspapers. You don't know if it's updated or if it's reliable in terms of the data and information displayed. Now you go on your smartphone. You don't even have to search for it. It just comes up on your smartphone. That trending or like breaking news. And that's really good, but it comes with challenges like using like AI. Too much AI can ruin things. And also in terms of like reliability of the source. So linking that information as a whole to education, kids, students, they don't know how to tell if a source is reliable or not. They don't know how to tell if this information is legit. With this in mind, it's really difficult to see. It's hard to use it for research. So for what I think, education will be so democratized in the next 5 to 10 years, or even more with new AI coming. Who knows? There might be a successor to AI that's smarter and more powerful. And I think there should not be a paywall to education. There should not be a paywall to information. I think that information should be accessible to everyone, both in education and other industries.
Agreed.
I feel like education in the next 5 to 10 years will be very different in terms of personalization as well. Because education has not changed for 200 years now. Education, the 1800s. Teacher, a row of neat lines, straight tables with like students sitting in a nice neat row. And look at today, the same thing. Education has not changed. And so is the intention behind education. Because education was designed to produce factory workers, the industrial revolution. If someone wants to be interested in like an industry, they can just go onto the internet and learn themselves. And I think the future of education is not learning in a class in neat rows with a teacher and a beating stick, but it's rather going on a platform. Just in 3 seconds, they were able to learn about the information. And I think that's the future of education. It's not fixed. It's adaptive and personalized.
Organic.
Yeah, right. I look forward to really adapting with that and playing around with this future revolving time of education.
So I'd love to know a little bit about the business then, right? So we've established why you're doing what you do. You've found a collection of like-minded, brilliant young people, I'm sure. You don't have business experience just by the factor of your age. How are you navigating the business side of running this business? How are you thinking about expansion, partnering with schools, with the government? How do you get outside the borders of Thailand? Like, what's the challenges you're facing now?
So we work with schools to host workshops to spread out and expand our reach to more students. We show them that we have this platform. It solves a big problem, makes it very convenient, democratizes education. And we do this by collaborating with different schools, reaching out to different schools. But again, challenges, right? If, for example, an executive, 50-year-old, handsome like you. And
I'm not 50 yet.
Okay, 40 years old, or like somewhere around that bracket, whatever number it is. They're more likely to get the reach, right? The acceptance. But as a student like us, it's really difficult to sell ourselves. And I think we built that reputation over the years. Now it's easy, but back then it was difficult. Back last week, So you mentioned about the business side of things. So let's talk about HR and the finance behind it, right? So first of all, let's talk about HR. So like I said, we're students. Finding people is hard, especially a student working for free or not expecting monetary compensation compared to a business. For us as a startup, I think it gives us an advantage in a sense where we don't have to worry about how much money we bring in, as we all, first of all, learning and not spending money on like salary, for example. So I think that for HR, aside from monetary side of things, finding the people is really difficult. So back then, finding people was hard. Finding a programmer was difficult. Finding people experienced in marketing like Taboola is quite challenging. So we really learned throughout the years. We experienced it ourselves. I think that's how we grew.
I'd like to double click on that before we move on. So there's a really, and I recommend you reading this, there's a book written by someone called Simon Sinek, who's a kind of business psychologist, brilliant mind. He talks about how businesses run, and he has a book called The Infinite Game. And the idea of the infinite game is that in life, we have two types of games that we play. There's finite games, and a good example of that is sport, right? You play football. I'm assuming you do some sport at some point if you have time. There's a winner, there's a loser, there's an end point, there's set rules to win by, right? And at the end of the game, you know that there's a winner. Then there's the infinite game, right? And business is an infinite game. Life's an infinite game. No one wins business. You don't get to the end of your career and say, I won. Doesn't exist, right? Yeah. It's more about the impact you have on people and certainly life, right? You don't get to the end of the life and say, I won life. Like that doesn't work. Right. Now, what you've just said about your team coming together but not focused on monetary short-term objectives, you've started by manufacturing that infinite game already, right? So you're all focusing more on adding value, building a platform, building a legacy, and building a team. And like that, to start a business like that is really special. You know, from my perspective, with a few more decades and a few more gray hairs on my chin, that's really rare, right? So I think when you're thinking about building your business and scaling, make sure you capture that and make sure you protect that, because if you can continue playing that infinite game, you're going to have lasting success. And you'll be measuring not so much on quarterly targets, you'll be measuring on the impact you have on people and the lives you change and the careers you build. And that's much more meaningful. And that's kind of how I've built my career, right? Focusing less on short term and more about the impact you can have on people. So I'm really happy to hear that.
The thing that will be the same is my clothing. What would be different is our KPI in terms of how many people we change, how many quizzes we have created by these people who use our product because it's genuinely easier for them to navigate through their education career. And that brings me up to the next point, which is finance, because nothing is free, right? You have to pay for servers. And that's also my second point when you ask me what challenges we faced. It's finance. And right now we're relying on grant money, but that in a business side of things is not a sustainable source of money. It's just like enough fuel for us to shoot our rocket up, but it won't stay up there for long. And we need to be sustainable. But during the time where we wanted to get a rocket up in the sky, we reached out to some grant programs, and we actually got a $3,000 grant from one of the world's biggest educational organizations.
Amazing.
Yep. And I'm looking this year to connect with government grants as well. Not only grow my platform, but also develop Thailand's innovation. And I think that's a big thing of my journey and my mission working at RevisionSuccess.
So then scaling that business and moving kind of outside, and I'm assuming startups are successful when they're borderless. Right, like I think it's important, as I talked about, to capture and harness that unique Thai perspective you have, right? And I think about what's an example, Ukbi, right? Ukbi, the e-reader platform, which is a Thai-based business, they built an incredible e-reader platform on the back of user-generated content, right? So all the other Kindles and all the other platforms didn't have that unique insight. And that's a very Thai unique insight. Thais love user-generated content. We love influencers here. It's a huge market, right? So they took that very specific, unique Thai culture and they built that into their business. But they didn't restrict themselves there. They then went out to find partners. So the way they scaled is they connected with Tencent, right? And by building that partnership and by building those relationships, they were able to really scale their business. So are you talking to bigger companies outside of government grants, VC? Are you having conversations around how you can actually maybe get partnered with other players like Ukbi did with Tencent? Or are you still looking at kind of grant money access?
So we're shifting our mindset into a more sustainable and long-term source which is partnering. And I think that's also something special about tech startups as well, for especially young people like me, is the connections you make and the relationships you sustain and maintain. Partnering with bigger companies and more, the companies, the hands that can pull up RevisionSuccess up to reach bigger impact. So I think that, first of all, the connection is pretty difficult for a student because you don't know who to reach. For example, sure, I want to work with this company, but how do I get there?
That's a really good question, right? And so that takes me to a place of thinking about mentors and business partners and bringing people in to the business. Have you started thinking about that? Like, do you have a mentor that's helping you shape your idea of how to run a business?
Yeah. So I actually have a few, I would say, more established individuals who I know, and we've actually gone to a few calls and like learn, oh, that's actually more to a business. For example, marketing. Before, I thought we throw money at Facebook, here's a dollar, make my website famous. But that's not the case. You throw a dollar, if you don't know how to optimize your reach, then Facebook will just throw no impact back to you. And I think that's something that Taboola does. First of all, how you optimize. But before you optimize, you have to know your market. And know your market, then you optimize. So that's what I'm actually learning too in terms of marketing. Yeah. So can you tell me more about how Taboola, like any marketing enterprises do this?
Yeah, so I think what's most important is an objective, right? So you really need to define what your objective is from a campaign by campaign perspective. You're obviously looking for reach and awareness, right? You need to think about really defining that objective for your business and then having the funds to back it up. I mean, I think from a Taboola perspective, we are a performance platform, and performance marketing is just an action, right? So someone sees an ad and something happens because of it, right? And that's lower funnel marketing. Upper funnel marketing is kind of reach and awareness. You see an ad, it impacts your thoughts on the brand and how you see the business and like building knowledge that way. So from a performance marketing perspective, targeting is the most important thing, right? So the way we work at Taboola is we work very closely with all our publisher partners. We work with about 9,000 publishers around the world. Bangkok Post is one of them. We work with Yahoo News, Apple News, Wall Street Journal, all the kind of big players around the world. And our technology sits inside the publisher, right? So our technology is in the newsroom. Our editors, our partners' editors are using that information to understand user intent, user behavior, who's reading what, what's trending globally, what's not, what are my readers reading somewhere else? Maybe I could write some content there. And that generates incredible amount of data. So Taboola's been using, AI is not new to us. We've been using AI for 17 years. That's the basis of our business, right? Everything we do is using AI. Generative AI is newer, obviously, right? But the traditional kind of data-driven algorithms is how we built our business. So all that incredible, unique user intent data and behavior data that newsrooms use, obviously, and publishers use to understand who's reading what and what their page views and stuff are. That's incredibly valuable for advertisers. You know, let's say you come onto the Taboola platform and you want to target students. The way we would look at that is, okay, across our entire publisher database or publisher network across the world, who's reading articles about education? Who's running articles about something to do with education changes, you know, anything to do with that, and then you're able to actually target the readers consuming that content, right? So it's very different to, say, social, which the way I see it is that we're a lean forward platform. When you're reading the news, you're leaning in. You're consuming, you're learning, you're trying to understand a topic, you're thinking of talking points to impress your friends or your partner later. When you're on Facebook and Google, it's lean back. You're leaning back, you're kind of just consuming. Just as valuable, by the way, just as important for targeting, but it's different. So for a platform like education, which is a kind of frontal lobe thinking category, right? You want people who are leaning in and trying to understand something. So maybe a performance campaign would work in that respect. So all of that data then gets used by advertisers to target those people. So if you want to target those people, we have the information, and we can also follow them around to understand what they're doing. You can retarget them. And there's a whole suite that we can't get into now, obviously. But it's incredibly data-driven and incredibly unique. And the final point to really focus on is it's about context. Contextual targeting is, from my perspective, where the future of targeting needs to go, right? Cookie depreciation's happening. User privacy is a challenge, right? There's obviously massive news and things happening around privacy around the world, different rules, different regulations. If you're a global business trying to navigate that globally. Every market's different. Like it's really difficult. So that's when contextual targeting comes into play, right? So cookie targeting, you follow a person, you target them, you retarget. That's traditionally how digital advertising's worked. What we do though is we contextually target. So we can target the context of the message. So like I said, understanding when people are reading stuff about education, that's contextual targeting. We can target those people without actually knowing who they are because they're more likely to be interested in an education platform. So if you extrapolate that across automotive, so obviously there's a lot of news around cars and car releases and car launches, people who are reading those articles are highly likely to be in market to buy a car. Really good place for an automotive car to be.
Maybe they just like cars.
Or maybe they like cars.
Yeah.
But that's fine, right? Because then they're educating them. And that works on any kind of performance brand, performance category like real estate or airlines, travel, finance. Finance is a huge performance marketing category. Right? Every time a finance ad is run, there's an outcome. They want someone to click on something. They want someone to sign up to a credit card. All of that happens contextually.
So let's roll back the clock a bit because you mentioned something about user privacy and data. So what are your thoughts on privacy in relative to AI and personalization of the content?
So privacy and personalization and content creation, there's really two parts to that. There's a creation of advertising, and I'll answer it two ways. So there's the creation of creative, for lack of a better term, or there's targeting. So creating content using AI is really around the pre-learning phase of an LLM, right? So models go out, they learn about what they're going to process based on the data they get access to, and then they go away and they run those models out. A lot of the challenges we're seeing at the moment is not really privacy, but it's about representation and bias. So large language models are fueled by data, right? And that data comes from somewhere. And at the moment, data is difficult to find relevant data. So at the moment, creative is being impacted by data that's not necessarily contextual and driven, right? So we're seeing a lot of that data showing biases. So for instance, if you go to a platform now and say, show me a picture of a doctor, most of the time it's going to be a white male. Right? Because that's what the data is telling it. That's right. So that's a massive bias, right? And that's a challenge with the way these data models work. So I think as data gets better and stronger and more data partnerships are happening with these LLMs, hopefully we'll see that change and evolve over time. So that's from a creative standpoint. And there's lots of comments I could also make around the process of creativity, how AI is impacting the creative process, which is a massive challenge. I've got another question around the usage and proliferation of AI in education. So how is it driving education, and what does that look like, and how is it going to evolve?
So like I said, data and information is really powerful. But the issue of it is it's unorganized. I think AI is a bridge between the data and the consumer and what the consumer wants. So I think AI would really help shape how information is consumed in terms of education. At RevisionSuccess, we also use AI behind the scenes. For example, personalizing content. We are able to assist teachers with how the class is performing using AI. We know how long a student clicks on an answer. We know what questions students get wrong, percentages, things like this, which cannot be obtained in traditional learning methods. If you do a paper test, and then you don't know how long a student spends per question, because you just get a piece of paper at the end of the exam. But using RevisionSuccess, we optimize this by using AI to know how long someone spends on a question, similar to how Taboola is able to analyze what readers are using and how are they touching the product. And that's how we're using AI in education as well.
So just thinking about that single point there, right? Understanding the time it takes for a student to answer a question. Like, how do you use that information to feedback loop back to the student to help them do it better?
So we offer analytics after a test or after a study game, and students can see which question they're struggling with. And we're able to rank the struggle based on different metrics, not only if they got this question right or wrong, but metrics like how long they spent, or like we can see how long they spent, or like how they navigate with the question. For students, we are able to tell the student, hey, you should study this. Here are some flashcards for you to study. And for teachers, we offer them, hey, this student is struggling with this. This student is struggling with that. You should optimize your next classes to cover that. Hey, your class as a whole is working very well on this topic, you should not teach them again. It's redundant.
They're optimizing education.
Yeah. So I think with this optimization, before it was fixed, now it's optimized with AI as a very helpful tool.
Interesting.
That's going to change education, I think.
I've got a more personal question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how do you balance everything? School, family, maybe girlfriends, I don't know. Work, like how is your family structured in a way that enables that to happen? And on the back of that, what's some advice for young people? And I ask this selfishly because I have a 12-year-old at home who I'm going to go home and talk about, like, this amazing young man that I met and why can't you do what he's doing? So what's some advice you can share with people watching about how to take an idea that you may have, and kids have thousands of ideas in every day, and actually back yourself and do it?
So we're kids, right? We want to be an astronaut. Tomorrow I wake up, I want to be a pilot, right? It fluctuates. And I think for students like us, I think finding the genuine thing is very difficult, but it will take you for a very long run. And I think you can't really force finding the right idea. So if your 12-year-old son wants to be an astronaut, make sure they want to be an astronaut. So as a parent, they should expose them to this field even more. You want to be an astronaut? Let's take you to a museum or like an exhibition. And if the student really likes it, if the kid really likes it, then he'll take his own initiative. And I think finding the right time happens on its own. You cannot really force something to happen. But I feel like not starting at all is not doing it. So I think action can happen today and not tomorrow. And that biases can be ignored. Because some students, some kids think, I want to do this, but I'm too young for it. I want to wait for a bit more. But I think action happens today, not tomorrow. And definitely, age is not a separation. Age is not a gap. Age is just a number. So,
and in your case, it's a superpower.
In my case, it's a superpower. That's right.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed meeting you today. Shall we get a photo?
Yeah. So let's do that.
Don't just listen, be a part of the conversation. Join our podcast and let's grow together. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and comment. See you in the next episode.